Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 Arizona National Junior Prospect Cattle Show. Please stand and welcome Hannah and Marie Geigel to sing our nation's national anthem.
Oh, say can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Hannah and Marie. Ladies and gentlemen, that means this is the start of the Junior Prospect Show. Class 1, you should be ringside. Class 1 Junior Prospect Calves, you should be ringside. Class 2, you should be working your way to the ring. Class 2 Junior Prospect Cattle, you should be working your way to the ring. Class 3, you need to be getting ready. Class 3 Junior Prospect Calves, you need to be working your way to the ring.
Hey Lisa, do you have an open class list yet? What? Open class list? Not yet? Okay.
We're doing good.
Right now.
The ball on this, yeah, it's
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 2023 Arizona National Junior Prospect Cattle
sit
Show.
up there and hold it.
Entering the ring now is going to be class number 1, Junior Prospect Calves. Entering the ring is going to be entry number 4173, Braxton Hosington of Safford, Arizona. Entry number 4264, Jackson Bartooth, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Entry number 4727, Braden Schroeder, Buckeye, Arizona. Entry number 5398, Nicole Leon of Chandler, Arizona. Entry number 6181, Cora Marta of Winston, New Mexico. Entry number 8299, Julia Dyer of Williams, Arizona. Entry number 8694, Charlie Cake, Kingman, Arizona. Entry number 9137, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. Class 2 Junior Prospect Calves, you need to be ringside. Class 2 Junior Prospect Calves, you need to be ringside. Class 3, you need to be making your way to the ring. Class 3 Junior Prospect Steer Calves, you need to be working your way to the ring. Judge this morning. Our judge today is Amanda Schnorr from Chowchilla, California. Amanda is a graduate from Oregon State University, and her and her sisters grew up showing steers and heifers. Now they focus more on purebred Angus herd and commercial cows. Amanda has judged many shows across the country, including the National Western Stock Show, North American, and many state fairs. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our judge today, Amanda Schnorr.
Privileged to be back here this morning in the sunshine weather, and we start off with a great class of prospect steers, and two steers here on the top end that I think are extremely close. I think when we start to get in these prospect steers, it's the first time we get a halter on them. They just don't want to cooperate as well and show themselves off, so it gets just a touch challenging to really sort them and get that good look that you need. But the steer we're going to start with today gives you the most in terms of his build and his type and kind. I like his lines. I think one at the ground is really truly sounder and square off both ends of his skeleton. Where he excels and one in seconds is in his center body. He's one that has that appearance that is just going to feed extremely well. Is he always going to be the stoutest or the biggest hip in class? Probably not, but one that's really well balanced today, really correct at the ground. The young lady does a nice job showing that steer. And when it comes in seconds, intriguing to me. I think if everything comes together and he hits that feed bunk extremely hard, he's going to catch a lot of these steers because he's so big backed, he's big hip, he's square when you step behind him. He just gets a little shallower there in his forerib and flank. I wish he'd go just a notch better at the pasture set, but I think he's just fighting the halter today. He's just not as comfortable at the ground as the class winner is. But man, is he bigger backed? Is he bigger hip than the class winner? He is. I just wish he was just a little softer middle. The calf that comes in third, another heavy muscled calf. I think in terms of back shape and that hip width, bone and foot size, he has a lot of good things. Once he hits that feed bunk hard and fills in his forward and heart and kind of matures in terms of that rib cage, we're going to probably be discussing this top three because he's got a lot of pieces. We just needed to balance up just a notch better. The cat that's in fourth, Good Looking Rascal. I think one from a profile you really tied to him in terms of his length the front end, his length the side, length the hip. It's just when you step behind him, he gets just a tad flatter hipped, little bass snare as we get behind him. I just need to pull him apart all the way through to get him up any higher today. Young lady with the red steer, I think you're a tremendous showman. I think from a profile looking in, you tie to this steer pretty fast. His neck comes right to the top of his shoulder. He is so smooth there in his shoulder and his forearm and heart. He's one that's really correct in his lines, and when you get him going, he's really nice at the ground. Where he has a disadvantage today in this particular class, he's just a tad bit narrow for me. I just need him to mature in his muscle pattern, get a touch wider all the way through to get him any higher. The Market Heifer, I hate to put a Market Heifer this far down because she's explosive. If we talk about muscle and power and width in terms of back shape, she has it. She just gets a little plainer up front, and if you watch her up front, she wants to toe out ever so slightly. I need to change her shoulder and make that a symbol just a notch better than what it is. From her midrib back, that's an explosive Market Heifer. I think will be very, very competitive in the Market Heifer division. These next two, I don't want to beat up on them too bad because they're nice kind of cattle. They're ones that are extremely good in their lines. They're neat to look at from a profile. It's when you step into them, just a little flatter and bass snare. I just need more time to mature. But nice set of steers here to start your market or your prospect steer show off with. Congratulations to them.
Congratulations to entry number 8299, Julia Dyer of Williams, Arizona. In second, entry number 6181, Cora Marta of Winston, New Mexico. Third, entry number 4173, Braxton Hosington, Safford, Arizona. Fourth, entry number 8694, Charlie Cake, Kingman, Arizona. Fifth, entry number 4264, Jackson Bar 2, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. And sixth, entry number 4727, Braden Schroeder, Buckeye, Arizona. In seventh, entry number 9137, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. And rounding out the class is going to be entry number 5398, Nicole Leon, Chandler, Arizona. Entering the ring now is going to be Class 2 Junior Prospect Cattle. Welcome to the ring, entry number 4172, Braxton Hosington, Safford, Arizona. Entry number 8568, Hunter Sanders of Fruitland, New Mexico. Entry number 8594, Bradley Brady of Waterflow, New Mexico. Entry number 8595, Bradley Brady of Waterflow, New Mexico. Entry number 8806, Kiona Yeager, Frenelfield, Montana. 56, Reagan Torben of Missoula, Montana. Entry number 8973, Nevaeh Guerrero, Claypool, Arizona. Entry number 9045, Caleb Newman, Silver City, New Mexico. Entry number 9080, Keelan Stanley, Sanders, Arizona. Entry number 9099, Sakari Frazier, Shiprock, New Mexico. And then entry number 9133, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. Class 3, Junior Prospect Market Steers. Prospect Market Cattle, you need to be ringside. Class 3, you need to be ringside. Class 4, you need to be making your way to the ring. Class 4, Junior Prospect Cattle, you need to be making your way to the ring.
prospect steers here on the top end. I think this duo of steers are extremely good in terms of quality and what they bring to us. The calf we're going to start with, I think one that just puts a lot of good. You get a show halter on him, and he's one that's got that long, stretchy neck. He's good right there in his form and heart. I like the way he's assembled in terms of his rib cage, and then you get behind him, he doesn't disappoint you in terms of having that big explosive hip, got that bone and that footwork. When he doesn't fight the halter, he still gets around and reaches extremely nice. It's just a really good calf with a real good look to him. I think he's going to be fun to, in the next few months, to jackpot, and hopefully matures in the correct way, because that calf has a lot of neat pieces. The steer that comes in second, if someone want to say, well, Amanda, he's bigger backed and maybe a little wider pent and has more bone, I wouldn't argue. I think when you get behind him, he's the one that does have the advantage, and with the pins and having that bone work and that big foot underneath him, it's when you get on the side is where you want to change him. He's a little bolder about that shoulder. He wants to toe out ever so slightly up front. It's a little tight there in his form and heart. I think he just needs a blend just a little better today to be really competitive with that class winner. But that's two really good steers that I'm getting critical of. I think they're going to start changing spots as they mature and get more weight on them. But it'll be fun to see what they end up like, or how they mature to that 13.5 pounds, because I think those cattle have a lot of quality working within them. And then from there, it gets a little more challenging to sort, because we got some differences in terms of sizes and type and kind. The black and white one that we're going to slip in here to third just has more to him today. He's bolder in that center body. He's deeper in his flank. He's one that's square when you step behind him. He's one on the side, though, I get a little critical of him. He's a little jammed up front. I question how big is this calf going to get at the end point, but today there's just more steer there. There's no more boldness. There's more power. That's just a nice little prospect steer for the young man. The steer that we're going to hang our hat and maybe take a chance with is the one that comes in fourth. I think one that has some pieces. If he matures in the correct way, you better watch out. He is long-necked, he's long-sided, got a big square hip in him. He has less hair than the ones above him, so what you see is what you get. Really raw in his body shape and kind. He just needs to balance out just a notch better. But there's some pieces there that all come together. He's going to be fun to feed. More moderate frame steer that comes in that fifth hole, a steer that's powerful. He's big topped, he's big ended. I question him in terms of how big he's going to get. If you look how bold shouldered and shorter his cannon bone is, I just don't know if that steer's going to mature in terms of his size like we'd want. But a calf that's bold in terms of his center body with the depth of flank, he has more power with up than the ones that behind him, and that's why he fits in that hole. The red steer, the red baldy, that's kind of fighting the halter and fighting that bad, because I think he's extremely nice. I think one that has the look and design aspect of things.
Yeah.
To me, though, when you start to compare him, he gets a little flatter rib, and honestly, he's hurting himself because he just doesn't want to stand as well. There's some good things about that steer I think is going to be fun to feed, because he has the depth of body, the structural integrity, the length of side. He just needs to stand just a notch better to give you a better look. Calf that comes next, stout, powerful, big top, big ended. I'd like to stretch him up front a little bit, give him a little more length through that front end, smooth him in that shoulder, and he just gets a little rounder hipped about him. But I think a steer, you appreciate his muscle and his power. The smoked steer, I think, is just a good feeding calf. I don't want you to get discouraged on that steer if you're really down in the line, because there's good things about him. If you study him in his forward and heart and back to his flank, his lower rib cage is really, really good. And then you move up, I like the way he ties high in that spine and his rib. I think one that's just going to feed. Maybe doesn't give you the extra look and the extra design aspect you want, but man, just a good body, good feeding one that has some muscle shape in him. We'll group these next three and visit with them about together. I think cattle that are good looking, they're long, skinny necked, and which I like, and they got that good square hip in them. They just need more time on feed to really move up today. They're just a little harder in that center body, just don't want to move and cooperate as well as we'd like. But nice set of steers. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Junior Prospect Steers. Welcome to the ring, entry number 4753, Addie Potts of Wichita Falls, Texas. Entry number 5116, Sophia Vinendahl, Kingsburg, California. Entry number 6938, Joseph Texeria of Terrebonne, Oregon. Entry number 8614, Cashley Brown of Spokane, Washington. Entry number 8621, Case Brown of Spokane, Washington. Entry number 8767, Addie Lafferty, Brad, New Mexico. Entry number 8777, Cash Pratt of Pueblo, Colorado. Entry number 8828, Colt Wells, Wilcox, Arizona. Entry number 8848, Weston Elwood of Norwood, Colorado. Entry number 8950, Stetson Quintanilla, Carlsbad, New Mexico. Entry number 9018. Entry number 9018, Jenna Bauman of Stephenville, Montana. Entry number 9132, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. Entry number 9150, Hadley Albers of Redmond, Oregon. For the delay from results from Class 2. Your class winner was entry number 8806, Kayota Yeager of Fairfield, Montana. Second, entry number 9080, Kellen Stanley, Sanders, Arizona. Third, entry number 8594, Bradley Brady of Waterflow, New Mexico. Fourth, 4172, Braxton Hosington, Safford, Arizona. 5th, 8595, Bradley Brady, Waterflow, New Mexico. 6th, entry number 9099, Sakari Frazier, Shiprock, New Mexico. 7th, entry number 9045, Caleb Newman, Silver City, New Mexico. 8th, entry number 8856, Regan Torben, Missoula, Montana. 9th, entry number 8568, Hunter Sanders of Fruitland, New Mexico. 10th, 8973, Nevaeh Guerrero, Claypool, Arizona. 11th, entry number 9133, Wyatt Miller of Brighton, New Mexico.
class of steers over here. I say this trio of steers are extremely good and can be competitive a lot of places here within the country. I know this black steer's not wanting to cooperate as well, but if you just relax and get to just study him, this is an interesting calf. I think he is extremely good. You know, I'm one you probably heard me talk about being fresh and youthful, and I think this is his advantage. You look at his head, his throat latch, and down into his chest, he looks like one of them good prospect steers. And then from his shoulder back, he just explodes. And you get behind him, he is so big in terms of his back shape, his squareness of hip, and when you get this much power in him and this powerful, and he still looks at the ground and goes extremely nice in terms of his pastern and his hawk set, that's just a good calf. I think he is extremely good. He is just so fresh and youthful in that head and neck and down into his chest, and that's where he has the advantage. Now, if you want one that just stops and gives you a look and you gravitate just because the way his neck comes out of the top of his blade, it's the one in second. This one from a profile view, he likes to show himself off. To me, though, he's going to be one that you got to manage just a notch better. If you look at his front 1/3 and that throat latch down into his chest, he's just a little thicker there, and that's where maybe he gets himself beat. And then when you step on top of him, he's a little flatter in his upper part of his rib cage. I'd like to see him more explosive up high. But man, in terms of the profile looking view, he gives you the look. His length of hip, his hawk and pastern set's almost ideal. I like the depth of his flank. Maybe just not as explosive up high as the class winner is as well. But man, those are two really good calves. You could go either way in my opinion. To me, I just personally preferred the black and the youthfulness that steer has. This red steer's no slouch. I think one that needs a lot more compliments. He's a little different haired, and it makes you kind of want to, you know, change his hair pattern a little bit. It's hard to appear, but man, at the ground, big-footed, big bone, explosives, and in terms of his upper hip, I like his underneath balance in terms of his chest, midrib back to his flank. He's one that's got a niche more shoulder up front than the two that are ahead of him, but those are three really good steers. If someone wanted to discuss all three of them coming back in the champion drive, I wouldn't argue, because I think them three are so high in terms of their quality, but three really stout, powerful cattle. The 4 steer, you just got in a tough class. That is a good-looking rascal that is neat in terms of his front end, his length of side, his structure. He just gets outpowered in this particular class, but one that's going to be fun. Young man, don't get disappointed about that steer. You just got in a really tough class. I think if you wanted to take one home and let him mature, he's going to be just as competitive. The next steer is, I love his front end. I think one that's just a little tighter in his foreb and heart, just needs to fill out in that center body. I think one that just gets a little shallower today when you compare him to the ones above him, but man, that's a good looking one as well. If we come next to black and white steer, I think this one is more ideal in terms of his structure. I like his hip and his hind leg. He's really one of those painted up ones that gets a little harder to evaluate, but if he wants to cooperate just a notch better, I think you got to appreciate a lot of things he brings to the table. I like his back shape. I like his hip placement. He's one, though, when you get underneath him and you look at his body and his flank, he's just a touch shallow there, and that's where he gets himself beat today. The black steer that comes next, I think one, if you want one that's long, stretchy necked and gives you the look, tie to this one, because this is the one that his neck comes out of the top part of his blade. He's big in his upper hip. To me, he just needs to soften up down low. Gets a tad round hip for me. Man, that is a good looking rascal as well. The stalking one that I like is bone, his footwork. I like him in terms of how big and wide pinned he is. Just needs more time on feed to really fill out. Young ladies, white steer that comes next, just a good feed steer. Look at that center body. Look at that depth of flank to him. He just gets outpowered when we talk about muscle shape. The next young man steer that comes next, same thing. I think just a good feed steer. I think at the ground, he excels some steers ahead of him. He's sound structured, his shoulder and knee lay in him correctly. He just gets pretty flat when you step behind him. I like this young man steer in terms of muscle and width, but up front is where we get concerned. His shoulder gets a little upright, that knee knocks forward. I wish that calf was sounder to get him any higher today. Young man with a cowboy hat, you got a good calf. Is this your first year? It's his first year, so compliments to him because I know it's intimidating to walk into the ring. I think sometimes we forget to give these youngsters credit. He's got a nice steer. Young man, you're going to have fun with him. He's good-haired and he's good body. He's going to be feed really well for you. He just got in a really, really tough class today. Don't get discouraged on him because that's nice kind of cattle, just a very, very competitive class. A steer that's not wanting to cooperate for a young man, but I appreciate his structure, appreciate the depth of body he has. He just needs more muscle to get any higher. But nice set of steers, very, very competitive there on the top end. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Well, the gate is open for the Open Angus Cattle Show, so we're going to go ahead and Junior Prospect calves. First place belongs to entry number 8777, Cash Pratt, Pueblo, California. Second, entry number 4753, Addie Potts of Wichita Falls, Texas. Third, Joseph Texria of Terrebonne, Oregon. Fourth, Sophia Venendal of Kingsburg, California. Fifth, Addie Lafferty of Brad, New Mexico. Sixth, Cashley Brown of Spokane, Washington. Seventh, Hadley Albers of Redmond, Oregon. Eighth, Jamma Bauman, Stephenville, Montana. Ninth, Weston Elwood, Norwood, Colorado. 10th, Case Brown, Spokane, Washington. 11th, Colt Wells, Wilcox, Arizona. And rounding out the class will be Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. In the ring now for the Junior Prospect Calves, Class 4. Entry number 4266, Jackson Bar 2, Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. Entry number 8313, Blake Bagley of Greenwich, Utah. Entry number 8501, Rhett Smith, Mills, New Mexico. Entry number 8502, Natalie Smith, Mills, New Mexico. Entry number 8533, Peyton Goff of Belen, New Mexico. Entry number 8572, Bryce Sanders of Fruitland, New Mexico. Entry number 9002, Marie Nicole of Eager, Arizona. Entry number 9027, Tiga Balba, Stephenville, Texas. Entry number 9059, Caitlin Holcomb, LaSalle, Colorado. Entry number 9083, Taylor Madison, Commerce City, Colorado. Entry number 9136, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. Entry number 9171, Easton Zerbeck of Roseburg, Oregon. At the conclusion of Class 4, we'll be bringing in all of our first place class winners for the division lightweight drive. So please be ringside. Please be ringside.
really neat class here, and I think this is the last class before the division. What competitiveness here on the top end. I think it's always challenging when you sort these young, immature calves, because you want to question what they're going to mature like, and you want to project them, but at the same time, we got to remember it is the show today, they're ripped today, and I think that's where the cream-colored one has the advantage. In terms of boldness of center body, depth of flank, how square backed he is. He's one maybe not as stretchy fronted as the one in second, maybe don't have the length of side as the one in second, but today he's just bolder, he's bigger backed. I love his bone shape. I think he's truer in terms of his width at the top part of the skeleton down to the ground, and that's really where he has advantage. When you get behind him, he really has that width of base all the way through. That's just a good calf here to start this class. For me, I'm a gambler. I like to take a chance, and one I would probably take a chance was with this one in second. I love him looking on the outside end. His length of neck, his length of side, his hip and hind leg is almost ideal when we get him in motion. It's when we get behind him is where it worries me here. When he starts to mature, he wants to close up at the base of his skeleton and hawk in a little bit. But man, from an outside looking in, that is a good looking rascal that has the right pieces. If he matures and feeds like I hope he does, these two are going to be very, very close here in the long run. Two really good steers here to top it off. The calf that comes in third, big-footed, big bone. He's one that's just a stout, powerful rascal. Not as stretchy up front as we'd like, maybe a touch more shoulder at this stage of the game than we'd like, but man, he is massive and bold. I think that one has a lot of red meat working within him. Good calf there in the third hole. Fourth hole, you got this one highly presented, but you just got in a tough class. I'm a sucker for a brockle-headed one, and he has that. He's got the rib shape, the depth of flank, the look. The young lady does a tremendous job getting this one shown. I guess for me in this particular class, maybe don't have that extra wow factor as some other things in terms of his width of pins, his boldness, and he has just a notch more shoulder than I'd probably like to see. But man, those are four really good steers. I think you young people should be excited to have your hands on those cattle because they're going to be fun to feed. The yellow one that comes next, if we had a colored division, I guarantee you he would be higher. This is just a good built calf. He's sound at the ground, he's structurally correct, he's good in his lines, gets outpowered in this particular class. Next steer, I like this one's center body. I like his depth of flank. To me, just a little jammed up front. He gets a little rigid in terms of his mobility. I'd like him to go just a notch better than what he does. The next two steers, we could probably complement those together and talk about them. They're the ones that have the extra length of spine, the extra length through their front end. They're correct at the ground, but to me, they just need more times on feed to mature in terms of their center body. These are two really good steers. They're good looking. They just need to mature, but I think you're going to have fun as well with those. The blue roan one that comes next, he don't have the big hair like some of these other cattle, but he's one that I like his length of side. I think he's one that's got the extra mass to him, gets a little straighter up front, like to change his shoulder and knee placement. Neat, good feed one too. I think one that's sound-footed, big bone, needs to mature in terms of his muscle pattern. He needs to be a touch wider. The yellow steer that comes next, I think one you like in terms of his depth of flank. You like him in his forward and heart. Just needs to change his balance. He doesn't want to tie as well in his hooks to pins down to the ground as we'd like to see. He gets a little more rigid as well in terms of his movement. Two that round out the class, I think cattle, you appreciate their structure, you appreciate their look. They're just a touch flatter in their overall design and makeup. Nice set of steers, tremendous top end on this class. Congratulations to them.
Results from Class 1. First place goes to Madeline Schickendance. Second, Easton Zerbat, Roseburg, Oregon. Third, Rhett Smith, Mills, New Mexico. Fourth, Blake Bagley of Greenwich, Utah. Fifth, Natalie Smith of Mills, New Mexico. Sixth, Bryce Sanders of Fruitland, New Mexico. Seventh, Marley Nickel, Eager, Arizona. Eighth, Braxton Bartube, Truth or Consequences, New Mexico. Ninth, Greg Peyton Goff, Belen, New Mexico. 10th, Caitlin Holcomb, LaSalle, Colorado. 11th, Tegan Boma, Stephenville, Montana. 12th, Taylor Madison, Commerce City, Colorado. And 13th, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. We will now be bringing in all of our first place class winners for the Champion Lightweight Division Drive. Class 1, Julia Dyer, Williams, Arizona. Class 2, Kiona Yeager, Fieldville, Montana. Class 3, Cash Pratt, Pueblo, Colorado. Class 4, Madeline Schickendance,
nice pair of them here in our Angus side. A nice class.
Division Drive. From Class 1A,
and get stopped and planted. Great Division 1. I think you guys as prospect steer exhibitors should be pumped about the cattle that you got on the halter out here. I think they're going to be fun here in the next few shows, but as well as to feed and watch them mature. I think they're good cattle. They're stout, they're powerful, so they're still correct at the ground. I was just visiting with the staff. We're probably, I was just realizing we do a top 5, and there's only 3 divisions, so that only leaves me 6 cattle at the end. we're going to pull top three out of each division. I just think this quality is so good, and I think from top to bottom, I think each steer needs a little more chance there at the end, especially if you pick a top 5. I'm not going to say much about these cattle. I said a lot there in class, and I'll get you a champion, a reserve, and a 3rd overall in Division 1. With me, put our hands together, extremely competitive class of steers out here.
She can place down to 5 in the division if she feels. But
Division champion goes to Madeline Schickendance. We'll be bringing in the 2nd place individual from that class, Easton Zerbach of Roseburg, Oregon. California will be bringing in the 2nd place individual. Junior prospect calves is class 5. We're going to welcome to the ring Kenzie Naviv, Albany, Texas. Reagan Nash, Pocatello, Idaho. Nolan Courtney, Missoula, Montana. Bentley Wilkins, Eager, Arizona. Bronson Campa, Golden Valley, Arizona. Christopher Bear, Tracy, California. Madeline Schickendance, Perryton, Texas. Reagan Torbett, Missoula,
9047. New
Montana.
Jesus Christ.
Braley Fuss, Merrimack, Oklahoma. Shelby Vincent, Kingman, Arizona. Mackenzie Crossford, Atascadero, California. Caleb Newman, Silver City, New Mexico. Caitlin Cole, LaSalle, Colorado. And Easton Zerback, Roseburg, Oregon.
Prepared to see the quality as we are in this Prospect Steers Show. I just am just overwhelmed with how powerful the top few of these classes have been. The quality is so deep and exciting. I think it just makes my day just a little funner as you go on, because when you come to judge a show, you look forward to judging, but at the same time you get a little worried, are you going to see quality or not? And today I did, and compliments to you exhibitors, especially ones on the side of the ring getting these things ready. They are right on. The steer we're going to use, this black and white steer, is my kind. I think in terms of the way his shoulder lays into him, how smooth he is behind his blade and his forb and heart. He's explosive there in his center body. And then you get on the outside, man, he gives you a look. I think this one is just so neat, the way his front end's assembled, and then when you move your way back, he is big-hipped, he's powerful, and he's still correct at the ground. You know, it is hard to put all these pieces together, and this one I think does it in a neat package. If you want one that's just a little bigger bodied, a little deeper sided, maybe a little bigger hipped, you go with the one in second, and I wouldn't argue with you. I think that is a big back kind of calf. To me though, he's a little bolder about his shoulder, a little open to the top part of his blade. His tail head just don't sit him just as correct as I'd like, but I'm getting critical of a good one. I think you could switch these two steers, we could flip reins, and he might like the one in second. I just think those are two darn good cattle that are going to be neat to see how they mature. I just like the smoothness and how that front end's assembled on that class winner. That's why this one gets itself beat today. The one in third, when he first walked in, I said, man, this one's going to give a run for his money. The curve to the upper part of his rib cage is almost ideal. He's correct in terms of his balance and his lines. He just got outpowered in this particular class, because that's a really good steer that's correct in terms of his structure. I said this earlier in previous classes, if we have a color division, we're probably going to be rediscussing this calf at the top of his class and really putting him in there in that division category, because he is so good. He's just gotten a tough class today. The red and white steer, I like his structure, I like his look, I like how smooth he is in his forb and heart. That's just a good feeding kind of cattle, just got outpowered. The black and white steer, standing still, I like his bone, I like his foot size, I like how powerful he is. It's when we get him going, he runs downhill, not as smooth in terms of the front part of his shoulder. I'd like to clean him up there to his throat latch as well, stretch him out up front, and that's where this calf has the advantage. I love this steer in terms of the way his neck comes out of the top part of his blade. He's so good there in terms of the base of his jawline down into his chest. To me though, he kind of wants to get a little piecey there, the way his shoulder goes into his forb and heart. Maybe not as correct in terms of that hawk and pasture movement as well. Standing there, you gravitate to him. When we get him in motion, like to change his running gear to get him any higher. The yellow steer, just a good feed steer, young man. Don't get discouraged in this particular class. I think one that is correct and structurally sound. He's good middle, just needs more power, more width of base to move any higher today. That is a really good, complete steer that I think is going to be a nice feeding steer. Same goes for the young lady here in the next. This yellow steer is big body, deep sided, just too base narrow. As you step behind him, I'd like to see more width. Black and white steer, powerful, square, good middle, deep sided, really straight off both ends of his skeleton. I'd like to see more flex and bend to that hawk to get him any higher as well. The black steer that comes next, when we get down to these lower three, we're going to talk structure, and I think it's really important on these prospect steers that they got the flex, they got the bend, because we feed them so fast and get so much weight real quick. I worry about how that structure is going to stay underneath them. They're nice cattle today that give you a good look. I just question how sound they're going to be in the near future. Congratulations to those exhibitors. Excellent there. They're on the top end. Those two are very, very close. Congratulations again.
This is a good class.
Congratulations to Braley Fuss of Merrimack, Oklahoma. Second goes to Kenzie Naviv of Albany, Texas. Third, Easton Zermack of Roseburg, Oregon. Fourth, Mackenzie Crawford of Catascadero, California. Fifth, Christopher Bear of Tracy, California. Sixth, Reagan Nash of Pocatello, Idaho. Seventh, Bronson Camp of Golden Valley, Arizona. Eighth, Shelby Vincent of Kingman, Arizona. Ninth, Brentley Wilkins of Eager, Arizona. 10th, Nolan Courtney of Missoula, Montana. 11th, Reagan Torbett of Missoula, Montana. 12th, Caitlin Holcomb of LaSalle, Colorado.
this class with. In terms of having them built smoothly, this is the one that is. I think when you study him, way his shoulder lays into him, way his symbols there in his form and heart, and then he's got that good, nice body shape to him, and he explodes when you get behind him. Does he have the bone and foot size as the calf does in second? He doesn't. Is he as big, wide pinned as the calf in second? No, but where he excels is his balance and how smooth he is there in his form and heart. His shoulder's almost ideal when you get him and going. He's a really neat steer that I think balances up extremely nice. The calf that has his second, he has pieces that I like. I like him at the ground. I like his foot, his bone work. I like how long, loose necked he is. I like how big hipped he is. I guess when we start to put all them things together, that's what gets him beat. He's got a little more shoulder than I'd like to see, and then he tucks there and gets a little tight there in his form and heart. I just wish he was just a tad smoother up front. If that all comes together as a fat steer, better watch out, because that long, loose neck, the way he moves, I think he's going to be fun. I just wish he assembled just a little nicer there behind his blade. Good feeding one there in the third hole. I think from his midrib back, he has a lot more advantages than the two above him. He's big bodied, he's deep in that rear flank. He just has that soft market steer look. I guess from a profile view, sometimes he gets himself beat. He runs downhill, has a little more shoulder. That neck is just not as nice as I'd like him in terms of his throat latch and his chest. But man, just if you get his head up and you kind of show him off just a tad more, that's just a good feeding, practical kind of cattle. That's got a good set of running gear underneath him. The one that comes in fourth, stock pose, he's good looking. He's big backed, he's got the shape, he's big bone, big footed. Just I wish he had a just tad more smoother in terms of his structure. He gets a little straighter there in his hock. He's a little upright in his heel depth. I gotta see him go just a notch better. The one that's in fifth, this is your feed one. If you want one that's just going to be feed and you don't have to stress about him, this is the one you want to grab. He is the soundest out of the top 5 that we've seen. If you look at the slope to his shoulder, his knee, his hip and hind leg, the way he gets around and goes is most correct. I think when you start to study his mass and his body shape, that's what gets him beat. I just need to see him mature just a little more in terms of his rib cage. I want that power to come in him, and that's going to be a good steer. He just gets outpowered in this particular class. Heavy muscle rascal that comes next. Big footed, powerful hip. He just gets a little straight up front. You can see he wants to toe out a little bit, and that's what gets him beat as well. A red steer I like his look. Young lady, you do a nice job. Balances up extremely nice. I like the way his neck comes out of the top part of his blade. It's when you get behind him, wants to hawk in, just doesn't have that muscle mass as I'd like to see. The black steer comes next. Big footed, big bone, deep sided, just jammed up on both ends of his skeleton. Jammed up through that front end, little shorter hip, and that kind of correlates the way that one moves. I wish he took a longer, looser stride. This red steer, if he would just relax and give you a look, there's also nice pieces about him. He is excellent there behind his blade and his form and heart. He's one that's really neat in terms of his balance, his length aside. He's good up high. It's down low is where I want to fix him. I want to drop that rear flank, make him go just a tad better off both ends of his skeleton. As you can see, he kind of wants to splay up front and close in at the base of his skeleton. Just got to change the way his structure works to get him any higher. But man, up high, that calf's really, really good. Good looking one that just needs more body, more shape to him when you get behind him. But man, he's got the look and design aspect. We just need to pull him apart off both ends of his skeleton. The black steer's big hipped. I like his hip structure. I like the way he correlates in his hip and hind leg. It's just when we get in and study him, gets a little shallow there in his forehead, back to his flank. Need that to drop just to really make him competitive out here today. The red steer looks like he has a more of a purebred steer to him, that Simmental look, just a really correct steer in terms of his lines, his length aside. Just got in a challenging class. There's not much wrong with that calf. I'd like to see more muscle and power, but really correct in terms of his balance. Same goes to the young lady steer that rounds out the class. Sound structured, good feeding, just gets outpowered today. But nice set of steers, really excellent there on that top end.
We've had a tremendous Angus show over here to start off our day, and what a fun way to start with high quality cattle.
Cattle, your first place individual goes to Sydney Chickendance, Perryton, Texas. Second, Charlie Nash of Pocatello, Idaho. Third, Coy Johnson of Monte Vista, Colorado. Fourth, Jace Evans of Redmond, Oregon. Fifth, Bailey Vernon of Artesia, New Mexico. Sixth, Ava Glasser of Tangent, Oregon. Seventh, Faith Campa, Golden Valley, Arizona. Eighth, Shelby Vincent of Kingman, Arizona. Ninth, Maxon Oswald, Pocatello, Idaho. 10th, Grace Holtmeyer, Big Fork, Montana. 11th, Gavin Scott, Redmond, Oregon. And rounding up the class will be in 12th place, Nora Madison, Commerce City, Colorado. Steer Show. In Class 6, we have Addie Potts of Wichita Falls, Texas. Caden Smith of Buckhorn, New Mexico. Kaylee Wilkins of Eager, Arizona. Faith Camp of Golden Valley, Arizona. Grace Scott of Redmond, Oregon. Linnea Harrington of Fallbrook, California. Caleb Newman of Silver City, New Mexico. Kellen Stanley of Sanders, Arizona. And Sakari Frazier of Shiprock, New Mexico.
Lori, can you have
the steers here, especially in this trio of calves, some gives and takes. I'll be honest, maybe a class I'm not as confident as I'd like to be, but 3 steers, I think if we watch mature, they're going to change places in terms of how we sort them. I bet 20 days from now, we're probably going to be rediscussing this class. But today, the white steer for me is one that just balances up extremely nice. I think one, when you get him going and allow him to move on his own, he is a sound structured, good built calf, and then you move his way way up. You like the way he ties together up front, and then he explodes in that center body, and the way his forward and heart back to that flank tie together. That is an excellent calf in terms of just his design aspect of things, and that's why he wins this class. Second and third are very, very close in my mind, and they're two different kind of cattle. If you want to sit here and compare both of them, we'd be here all day discussing them. The steer in third, there's more foot, there's more bone. He's stouter, more powerful today as you step behind him. I liked how square he is, right behind his blade, all the way back to his hip. Does he have a nickel more shoulder than the one in third? Maybe he does. I don't think he's probably highly presented and fitted as the one in third, so I think that sometimes hurts him and is a disadvantage, because there's some pieces in this calf I like. I like his center body, I like his depth of flank, I like how powerful he is. I just sometimes think he just looks just a little plainer in his overall look down low than the calf does in third, just because of a fit job and presentation. The one in third is man from the outside looking in. I love him in terms of a profile view. I think that long goosey neck, that long side to him, the way his tail head sits right there on his hip correctly. It's when we get in and step in, he gets a little shallower about his body, not as big and wide backed as the two ahead of him, and that's what gets him beat today. But man, on a profile view, if we just sorted him like that, we'd be probably rediscussing this class, because he is so good looking, excellent in terms of the way he's presented. Excuse me, young lady, you do a nice job as well when shown. Really big footed, really big bone calf that has the length of side to him, wants to toe out a little bit up front, maybe not as good in terms of that center body, gets a little flatter and dry up high in terms of that rib cage. Smoky steer, I think if you want to just take one home that's practical in terms of his type and kind, you take this one home, because he's good feeding, he's sound structured, gets a little base now when you step behind him, maybe not explosive up high in terms of that top shape as the ones ahead of him are, and that's what gets him beat, but just a good feeding kind of cattle that's sound structured and soft middle. Same goes for the black steer that comes next. I think one that you like in terms of his center body, you like his depth of flank and how good he is in terms of his structure. Up high is where he gets a little flatter, a little base now. I wish he had more back shape in him to get him, a little more competitive today. The white steer, I think, is one you like stopped and posed. Good looking rascal from the outside looking in, just gets a little straighter off both ends of his skeleton. Young man, you got a nice steer here, and don't get discouraged by how you place today, because I think in terms of structure, depth of body, he has a lot of good things working for him. I just wish he had more muscle to get any higher. Black and white steer, young lady, you also do a good job getting him presented. Really long necked, really long sided, just really shallow there in the top part or the bottom part of his rib cage. Wish I could drop that flank in him, but nice set of steers, very competitive, especially that trio there on the top end. We had to disqualify one, but maybe not as smooth as shouldered for him as that one that we disqualified, but the calf that I love from his midrib back, love the shape and power and the structural integrity he has in that hip and hind leg. Steer that's going to come next, I guess in second with the red shirt to the young lady. Steer I like from a profile, just needs more time. Wants to close up at the base of his skeleton, not as flashy as that class winner is, but really nice steer that's going to feed extremely nice. The white steer, I like the foot and the bone work and the soundness that that calf has. Just wish he had just a touch more top shape. I guess for as big and tall and long he is, he needs more muscle working within him, and that's where that steer in fourth has the advantage. Steer in fourth is big backed and big ended, just gets a little coarse there up front, maybe not as sound in terms of his mobility. Black steer that comes next, I like his length of side, I like how fresh and youthful headed he is, just needs more body and depth of flank to get any higher. The calf that way round out the class, standing there, has a lot of pieces. Good body, heavy muscle, just gets too straight off both ends of his skeleton. But nice set of steers, congratulations to them.
Of the Junior Prospect Show. First place goes to Paisley Deniski of Elk City, Oklahoma. Second, Dylan Carlisle, Kirtland, New Mexico. Third, Cooper Wells, Wilcox, Arizona. Fourth, Landon Rogers, Chino Valley, Arizona. Fifth, Samantha Merriman of Alpine, California. Sixth, Kristen Abel, Redmond, Oregon.
Get our calf division here in our Brahman show, and good quality out here. I think functional females that are going to make good cows. There's a pair of them for me that just
ring, not a calf that you just tie to and get excited about like previous classes, but nothing to take away from these top couple. I think it's very close. I think it just comes down to personal preference and what you like, because each one of these brings something different to the table. The smoke steer for me just flexes just a touch nicer in his hawk and pasture. That's why he's going to win this particular class. He's one that's smooth and well designed, gives you a nice look, but when we get in motion, I think he handles his rear two just a notch better than the one in second. One in second standing there, it goes, wow. I think that's a highly presented steer that gives you that body, that shape, that mass. It's still really, really correct up front. It's just, I don't know if he's just not liking the show ring or show halter. He's not wanting to flex as well at his pastern. I'd like to see just go just a notch better off them rear two to really, really, consider switching that pair. But I think that's close in my mind. I think structure just sorts that duo for me. Good feed one there in the third hole. I think one, we talk about body and structural integrity. This one has it. Maybe a little plainer up front. Like to clean them up under, down low in terms of that sheath. But I think a steer, you have to appreciate so many things. His structural integrity is what gets him in that third hole. The fourth hole steer is one I love standing still. In terms of back shape, hip and bone and footwork, to me though, he gets a little straight in that shoulder and that knee. He wants to toe out up front, and I'd like to just change this knee and foot placement to get him any higher. The red steer, when he first came in, I said, whoa, that's a good looking rascal. Neck comes right at the top of his blade. We got that long spine, that big powerful wide pinned hip in him. To me, gets a little tight and flatter in that rib cage. I like to bold him up there in terms of his rib shape and get him really, really full there in his forb and heart to change him. But I think a steer, you have to appreciate his length of side, his length of stride that he has. Just make him a little better there in his forb and heart. This Shorthorn steer, I think if he had a purebred class, we'd be reconsidering and he'd be higher, because he's a good steer. Good bodied, sound structured, just needs more mass today. And the market heifer that rounds out the class, the young lady, you got one that's going to feed extremely well, but when you get underneath and study her, she gets a little smaller footage, smaller bone, and a little plainer up front. But nice set of cattle in that class. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Yearling heifers. Class 9, your class winner belongs to Ike Smith of Mills, New Mexico. Second, Kenzie Nabeev of Albany, Texas. Third, Haley Maggie of Pleasanton, California. Fourth, Presley Cabot of House, New Mexico. Fifth, Brielle Ritchell of Roosevelt, Utah. Sixth, Haley Crawford of Atascadero, California. And rounding out the class in seventh is Gwen Eastburn of Waddell, Arizona.
nice set of steers. I pulled this one pretty fast. This one kind of suits the bill for me in terms of being balanced and muscle and power. He just assembled really good from his front end all the way to his rear. And then you get him in motion. He's so correct in terms of his structural integrity. That's just a really good calf. I look forward to seeing that one come back. The one that comes in second is so explosive up high. It's so wide pinned and square. Powerful, maybe not as smooth shouldered as our class winner. He gets a little bold there and maybe just doesn't assemble as correctly there in his foreb and heart. But man, that's a massive calf. From his mid rib back, you really appreciate a lot of things. Just wish he went just a notch better when we get him in motion at the ground, but really stout, powerful one there in the second hole. Young lady, you got a good one there in the third hole. I think one standing still, you really tie to him in terms of his lines, his correctness. He gives you an awfully neat look. It's when we get him in motion, gets really short strided off both ends of his skeleton. Wish he flexed just a little better there in his pastern set. But 2, 3 really nice cattle that are stout and powerful and big bodied. I think structure is just what sorts that trio for me. One that comes in the fourth hole, I'll be honest, I'm a sucker for a brocklehead. I think when they got that good brocklehead and they're good looking, you really want to use them. I think the length of side that this one has, you appreciate. I like its structure. When you get into him though and start to study him there in his foreb and heart and back into his flank, he gets pretty shallow. I think that rib cage just needs to change a little bit just to get him any higher today, but really competitive steer that's got the structure and the look. I just need to change his center body to get him any higher. The smoke steers are very similar. I think they mirror each other in terms of type and kind. The one that we're going to use is one that's bigger footed and he's sounder structured when we get him in motion. Maybe not as powerful up high as the one behind him is. I just think in terms of longevity advantage, he has the advantage in terms of soundness. Heavy muscle rascal here. I think from the rear view, you really like him in terms of how powerful he is behind his blade and all the way back to that upper hip. It's when you get in front of him. He wants to close up at the base of his skeleton and tighten his foreb. Wish he was just a touch smoother up front to be really competitive within this class. The black steer, in terms of structure and depth of body, you have a good calf, young man. I think it's just when you get behind him, that one gets pretty flat and pretty base narrow. The Hereford Marked one, I appreciate his bone, his footwork, appreciate the length of side that one has. Kind of shallower body, tighter flank, just needs more days on feed. See, that rounds out the class. He just wasn't being a good teammate to the young man wanting to get loose and stuff, but good feed one that has a good rib shape within him. I think when you start to study him, just gets a little plainer in his overall look. Nice set of cattle. That one on top is pretty good. I look forward to seeing that one come back. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Just got one Brahman bull here and one that's maybe not
to the results for the Prospect Cattle Show from Class 10. Addie Lafferty of Brad, New Mexico. Second, Bailey Verdon of Artesia, New Mexico. Third, Reagan Nash of Pocatello, Idaho. Fourth, Cash Pratt of Pueblo, Colorado. Fifth, Carson Castro of Redmond, Oregon. Sixth, Briley Richel, Roosevelt, Utah. Seventh, Daniel Borges, Waddell, Arizona. Eighth, Pistol Barnes, Flora Vista, New Mexico. Ninth, Wyatt Miller, Brighton, Colorado. Mallory Schnurt, Fallbrook, California. Fernando Melendez of Ashland, Oregon. Hayes Bagley of Greenwich, Utah. Samuel Fodge of Artesia, New Mexico. Taylor Rowland of Peralta, New Mexico. Grace Elverud of Charlotte, Montana. London Rogers of Chino Valley, Arizona. Paisley Vineski of Elk City, Oklahoma. Peyton Nickel of Eager, Arizona. McKinnon Stevenson of Portales, New Mexico. Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma. And Peter Grosetta of Cottonwood, Arizona.
competitive class from top to bottom that we've seen so far this morning on the Prospect Steer Show. This is a darn good class. I think no matter where you place, you guys should be excited about the cattle that are in that halter of yours because I think there's quality all the way through. One we're going to just start with is my kind. I talk about fresh and being youthful and balanced and that shoulder laying in them good and forward and hard, and that steer does it. And then you put him in motion. I just love how correct he is at the ground when he wants to act well. I think in terms of true with the base and being genuine up high and down to the ground, that calf does it. He just has the corners and all correct parts of his body. That's just a good one. I think you should be excited owning that one, young man. The steer that comes next is one from his midrib back. I love his body. I love his depth. I like his hip and hind leg structure. It's midrib forward. I kind of pick on him a little bit. He wants to toe out up front a little bit. That shoulder kind of blows out just ever so slightly in him. I'd like to change the way his front end's assembled. But man, you want a big bodied, massive, powerful one when you get behind. That one in second has a lot of good things. Young man, you got a good feed one here in the third hole. I think if we want to just talk practicality, structural integrity, that one has it. He's so loose structured and loose made from his hip and hind leg. I think you have to appreciate about him. He wants to run downhill a little bit. I just don't think that shoulder just lays in him as nice as we'd like. I'd want to pick him up at the base of his shoulder just to have him more elevated and give him more of that look. But man, from his midrib back, he's also stout. I love this steer in fourth, and I think if you start looking at his hair and studying him, he's not as big haired as some of these other cattle, and it kind of goes to his disadvantage because I think if he had the hair as some of these other steers on either side of him, we'd say, man, that thing is good, good, good. I think this is just a good built kind of steer. I think he's so correct in terms of his angles, his balance, his top line, how good he is in terms of the turn to his rib cage. We probably here, when we added more weight to the steer and hair starts to change, we'll probably rediscuss where this calf lays in this class because I think he is so correct just in terms of his build, his structural integrity, and that's where he gets these ones behind him. Yes, the steer that comes next is bigger hipped and wider pinned. I just think he gets a little straighter hawked, a little straighter down in that pastern set. But man, stop, pulled together, young man, that's also a good looking one as well. The steer that comes next, big feet, and I think you appreciate that about him when you get underneath and look how big footed, big bone he is. He's really good in terms of his length aside, his hip and hind leg really correlate together. To me, he's a little older, mature about his head and down into that chest. I'd like to freshen him up there, make him a tad more youthful. That's where the white steer has the advantage. I think he is a little more youthful in his head. I like his hip and hind leg structure as well. Just a little blown out in his shoulder, a little tightness forward. Like to change him there in his heart and his forearm there. The steer comes next, big footed, big bone, deep sided, just a little flatter there. When you get behind him, wants to close up at the base of his skeleton. Wish I'd widen him up. The red steer that's highly presented, I think he's a little showhorn appearing. I think just a good built kind of cattle. I think sound structured, his angles are correct. I think way his rib cage attaches is really nice. Just flatter in his upper hip, wants to hawk in when you get behind him. The black steer, young man, you got a good feeding one. Good body, deep sided, just plainer up front, would like to stretch him out. And that goes for the young man steer that rounds out the class. Don't get discouraged about these cattle. These are good cattle market steers that get good body, they're deep sided, they're sound structured. They just got in a very, very tough class today. But congratulations to those exhibitors. That was a challenging class from top to bottom.
Got a really good pair of February
On the Prospect Steer side, first place goes to Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma. Second goes to Paisley Vineski of Elk City, Oklahoma. Third goes to Hayes Bagley of Greenwich, Utah. Fourth goes to Samuel Fodge of Artesia, New Mexico. Fifth goes to Peter Grosetta of Cottonwood, Arizona. Sixth goes to Fernando Melendez of Ashland, Oregon. Seventh goes to Mallory Schnert of Fallbrook, California. Eighth goes to McKenna Stevenson of Portales, New Mexico. Ninth goes to Grace Elderwood of Charlotte, Montana. 10th goes to Landon Rogers of Chino Valley, Arizona. 11th goes to Peyton Nickel of Eager, Arizona.
Prospect Steers, a good class, maybe not as competitive, challenging as the class before, but you got to appreciate a lot of things about these steers. The red and white steer for me, the Shorthorn appearing, wins this class pretty easy. In terms of balance and look and body shape and mass, he excels in a lot of things. If you want to change his front end structure, I wouldn't argue with you on that. He wants to toe out ever so slightly up front, but a good body, deep-sided steer that's got some muscle and power with him, still flexes really nice off them rear too. The yellow steer, if he just calm down and relax and kind of show himself off, we probably rediscuss this class. He wants to get a little high in his spine. It throws his hooks and pins off a little bit in that tail head set. But if you study him in terms of his center body, he's big-bodied, he's deep-sided, From his chest, midrib back to his flank, balance up exceptionally well. He's still's got that mass and with the base. When he gets excited, he just don't want to go just as comfortable as we'd like. I'd like to see him just go a little smoother at the ground. Heavy muscled steer. I think a steer, you have to appreciate the muscle and the back shape that this one has. Gets a little rounder shoulder, maybe not as nice up front in terms of that top part of his neck that I'd like to see. Would make him just a touch more fresher and more youthful up through that head and that jawline, but a stout, powerful one there that falls in the third hole. Highly presented steer here in fourth. I think one, we appreciate just muscle and power. I think you got to appreciate the body and the depth of flank that this one has. Just wish he went just a nickel better at his pasturing set. He gets a little upright there, not as flexible in terms of his mobility. Good feed one in terms of center body and bone and foot size. He wants to turn up front. I'd say this class probably had the most challenges in terms of running gear. I'd like him to go just a notch better through that knee and down to the ground. But man, from his midrib back, there's a lot of calf there that I like. The smoke steer, I think this one would be an interesting slick one because he is so big hip, so powerful. His hip and hind leg and how that coordinate is really, really good. He does get a little open there at the top part of his shoulder, a little flatter there in his rib. But man, there's some pieces about this calf. If everything comes together, he'll be intriguing here in the long run. The black steer that comes next, just good footed. I think in terms of structural integrity, you have to really like that steer. I like his look, his length aside. He just gets pretty flat when I get behind him. The smoke steer is opposite. He gives up the extra look and the extra length aside, but man, he's got a big white pin in him. He's really good in terms of the turn to his rib cage. Wish I'd change his front end in the way that's assembled. Bigger kind of cattle, I think he's put most of his energy in terms of his length of size and his frame size. We need to slow him down there and get him to soften up, drop that rear flank, make him just a tad better there in his rib cage, but really good looking long-sided one. Steer that rounds out the class. There's some pieces. I think you gotta like his bone, his footwork, gotta like his rib cage, but let's tie everything together. He doesn't balance up as well as we'd like, especially there in his top line. But nice set of steers, very good there on the top end. Congratulations to all those exhibitors.
Another really good pair in our Hereford side. A big
Heshe, Queen Creek, Arizona. Second, Braylon Frazier, Shiprock, New Mexico. Third, Taylor Rowland, Peralta, New Mexico. Fourth, Collins Dickinson, Johnson, Kansas. Fifth, Parker Heskin, Marana, Arizona. Sixth, Pistol Barnes, Flora Vista, New Mexico. Seventh, Kellen Stanley, Sanders, Arizona. Eighth, Stetson King of Tonopah, Arizona. Ninth, Bryce Sanders of Fruitland, New Mexico. 10th, Shay Medlin, Kingman, Arizona.
Another good pair here, these older heavies.
Individuals for the second division drive of the Prospect Cattle Show. So if you are first or second, you need to be ringside. Please check in.
I've had to make with this duo of steers up here on the top end. Tremendous in terms of their quality and the way they're presented. Sometimes you wish they acted just a notch better than what they do in terms of when you get them in motion, but I got to keep in mind it's probably their first show out, so they're not wanting to adjust to that show halter as well as we'd like. Let's just describe these two steers, and I'll hurry up so we can get the open show on the other side, but I think these two deserve just a few things, just so what I see. The steer out here in front is one that's a little tighter jaw, a little better in terms of the base of his chest floor. He's one that's just a rib longer, and I think he's a touch wider and longer about his hip. He's the one, if you want to change him, you could tie him just a notch better there behind his shoulder and his forearm and heart, make him just a touch fuller there. But his length aside, how fresh and youthful he is up front, really excels. I wish we could get a better look at him when he's moving. He's just fighting that halter, and I really like the extra length aside. We come back to the steer behind him. If you want to say one is almost ideal in terms of his hip and hind leg and the way he correlates that together, he is big-bodied, he's deep-sided. He is one that's really good there behind his blade, up high and down low. To me, though, when you start to study him, does he have a little more chest? Maybe he does, and I wouldn't argue. Is he as tight jaw-lined as the calf in front of him? He's not. I think, to me, you're going to have to really manage this one's front end, and then that one you're going to have to push. So two different types of steers for me. I think today, in terms of balance, build, how smooth they are, in terms of their design, young lady, you're going to win this class to me. We'll come grab that calf for second. But those are two really, really good steers. I think could go a lot of different ways. The red steer's no slouch himself. I think just got in a tough class. We want to talk about structure and having the right flex and bend down low. This calf does. I think he is awfully good in terms of his center body. I think he's good in terms of his running gear down low. Just gets a little plainer all the way through, especially at the base of his chest floor. Excuse me, I'd like to tuck him up there, but a really good functional kind of steer. The smoke steer is interesting to me. I think one that's big-footed, big bone, square-backed. To me, he just fights that halter, so he just doesn't really show himself off. He wants to toe out a little bit up front, but I don't know if that's because he's fighting it and not relaxed out here. He's just a steer I think just needs more time and just relax more, because we probably rediscuss this class if he wasn't fighting that halter. A steer that's so highly presented as a young man steer. I think in terms of one standing there, you like his back shape, you like how explosive he is up in his upper hip, down into that lower stifle. I think just if he softens up to that rear flank, we'll probably really, really like this steer as a fat steer if everything comes together. The market heifer that comes in here, I think she deserves a little more competition. Really smooth and well balanced, good middle, deep-sided, sound structured. She just gets outpowered. Of course, she's a female, but we put that market word in front of her. She just needs more bone, more foot size, and widen up all the way through. Between these two steers that round out the class, I went with one that looks like he'll feed just a notch better. He's bigger bodied and deeper sided today. Does he have the muscle width and power as the one that rounds out the class? He doesn't, but I just think he's deeper sided, sounder footed. I like the muscle pattern that this steer has. I think he is big backed, big upper hip, but when we get in motion, he just not as comfortable in terms of his mobility. I'd like to drop it in that rear flank. Really, really tough class. It's going to be exciting to get those two back out here in this division.
This is a tremendous Hereford lineup here on this
In the middleweight division drive, coming back from Class 5 is Riley Fuss of Merrimack, Oklahoma. Sydney Schickadance of Perryton, Texas. Addie Potts of Wichita Falls, Texas. Paisley Vaneski of Elk City, Oklahoma. Ike Smith of Mills, New Mexico. Addie Lafferty of Bard, New Mexico. Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma. Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma. Charlie Ramsey from Alamogordo, New Mexico. We are now going to jump back over to our open cattle ring. We're going to start our bull show in the open Hereford show.
On the prospect steer side, I don't want you to think I'm making my own rules as we go. I just feel like if we have a top 5 and there's only 3 divisions, I feel like we just need to go a little deeper within this division. We're going to pull 4 out of here because I think it's that competitive, that deep, and I just think when we get a top 5 at the end of the day out of 3 divisions, we need to pull as much quality within that, and this division has it. This is wow. This is pretty awesome, and I hope Tyler on the next to me was over to look over here, because there's some cattle out here that could be very, very competitive throughout the country, and you guys should be proud to have these steers within those halters and own them, because this is exciting. You know, I know there's a lot of other shows coming up, and so you never know what your prospect steer show is going to be like when you come to one of these, and compliments to you exhibitors, but also the guys behind the scene, because these are presented extremely, extremely well. There's a couple out here that I think that are pretty darn good. There's 2 in my mind that are very different, and I know they're different, and some of you guys will probably say, Amanda, they don't match up as well as you'd like. I agree, but I think the quality within those 2 are exceptional. I think it's going to be fun to see how they mature and what comes together, how they hold together. I think they're just so correct all the way through. With that said, let's put our hands together. We'll get you 4 of them out of this division.
Congratulations, your division, middleweight division champion belongs to Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma.
This young lady's brought us a really nice single entry.
Cash Pratt 8776.
Congratulations to Cash Pratt on your reserve division middleweight. We are now moving into class number 33, late senior bull calf. Show. We're going to welcome in the ring Josh Williams from Gilbert, Arizona. Ava Glasser, Tangent, Oregon. Amelia Kovich, Shingle Springs, California. Richard Hanger, Gilbert, Arizona. Trace Johnson, Monte Vista, Colorado. Peyton Groff, Belen, New Mexico. Hayden Frigard of Los Banos, California. Jace Evans of Redmond, Oregon. Carly King of Tonopah, Arizona.
So this
Keona Yeager of Fairfield, Montana. Kobe Kirby of Muleshoe, Texas. And Molly Mejia.
So we got a little out of line here on our
steers as we get to this last division. One that comes to the top pretty easy in my mind. Sound structured, and then you move your way up and study him. He's bold, he's stout. I love how big and powerful hip he has, and it just coordinates extremely well down low. Just a good steer there to start this class off with. Good looking one that stands in second. I think from the outside, and you study him in terms of his length aside, his profile, his bone and foot, you like how smooth that steer is. Maybe not as big, powerful hipped as either steer on either side of him. I just think his balance and his structural integrity allows him to lay in that second hole. That's just a nice steer there to feed. The one that comes in the third hole at the ground, he's so big footed and big bone and big in his upper hip. Maybe just a little coarser up front, a little bolder about his shoulder. He gets a little tight there in his forehead. But from his mid-rib back, there's a lot of calf there. There's a lot of good, a lot of quality. If that balances up and assembles a little nicer up front, we're going to rediscuss probably that top three steers because he is so powerful up high and also down low. Another neat steer, big back steer. I like the way his muscle shape starts right behind his blade, how wide he is down his top line. It's just down low, we got to change him. He gets a little rigid in his movement, a little upright in his posture and set, and that's what gets him beat today. The smoke steer, just a good made kind of cattle. If you want one that's sound-footed, good looking, got the length of side, the length of hip, and flexes so well, you grab a hold of this one and just roll with him. He's one that's just a good feeding one, that's a nice calf. I think he has a little point of his shoulder. I'd like to change that and smooth that up a little bit, but man, just a nice feeding, sound structured steer that the young man has. A more moderate frame steer, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's what changes the game here and what you prefer. You like big cattle or small cattle. This one's a little more moderate, a little more compacted, and I think that just allows him to be bigger in his back shape, wide pin. He just gets a little straight off both ends of his skeleton, and that's why I got him that where he is today. But man, he is sure square built and sure wide all the way through. A steer that comes next gets a little piecey for me. You can see his top line just don't tie together. He's deep-sided and sound-footed. Just wish he was a little more comfortable there up high in terms of the way that spine lays into him. Good-looking rascal that comes next in this yellow steer. I think one that you appreciate how neat he is from the profile view and how he balances up high. I think one that you would like to change down low and give him a little more forerib and flank in him to get him any higher today. Heavy muscled steer. I think one, you talk about muscle shape and power, he has it. He's just too round off both ends of his skeleton. The black steer that comes next is one that I like his bone, I like his foot size. To me, he just gets a little plainer and nondescript for me to get any higher. Young man steer, I like the structure and I like the look of this calf. Young man, you got a good feeding steer. Is this your first time? If this is your first steer, you should be proud of him because he's going to feed extremely well. His structure is going to hold up. He just doesn't have the red meat and muscle that we'd like to see in this steer. A nice red roan steer that comes next. He's what you see is what you get. I think this one would be competitive in a slick steer deal because he's so long-necked. He's so smooth built. He just gets a little straighter there in his hawk and pasture set. But nice to the steers, very competitive from top to bottom. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Congratulations to our grand champion, Hereford Bull, First place, Kobe Kirby, Muleshoe, Texas. Second, Trace Johnson, Monte Vista, Colorado. Third, Jace Evans of Redmond, Oregon. Fourth, Keona Yeager, Fairfield, Montana. Fifth, Richard Hanger, Gilbert, Arizona. Sixth, Carly King of Tonopah, Arizona. Seventh, Hayden Frigard of Los Banos, California. Eighth, Amelia Kovich of Shingle Springs, California. Ninth, Ava Glasser, Tangent, Oregon. 10th, Peyton Groff of Belen, New Mexico. 11th, Joshua Williams of Gilbert, Arizona. Rounding out the class is Molly Mejia from Arizona.
Got a nice way to start.
A calf that wins this class pretty easy in my mind, and he wins at the ground. I think he's the soundest structured calf, and then you move your way up, he's powerful and bold and still gives you a nice look. Nice steer here to win this particular class. I think from here on out it gets a little more challenging for me. I think structure is one issue, and I said this earlier today, when these calves start to add the weight, that's when it gets a little more challenging to watch him move. And the smoke steer standing there, he's one that's good bodied and deep sided. He's just not as comfortable when we get him in motion as the class winner is. He's not as flexible there in his hawk as we'd like him to see. He's good bodied, he's deep sided, he balances up as well. I just wish he'd go just a tad better than what he does. The black steer is a little better looking. I think one that's really neat up through that front 1/3. I think he's good in terms of the curve to his rib cage. He just gets also a little straighter in that hawk, and I'd like to drop that rear flank. The smoke that kind of steer that comes in fourth, this is an interesting calf. I think from the profile view, you really like him. You like how deep he is, you like his balance, you like his lines. He's really good from his chest to his midrib back to his flank. It's just when we get to behind him, I wish there was a little more power. I guess at this weight of the game, I'd like to see these cattle wide and really bold there in his upper hip and down into his stifle, and that's what gets him beat. I wish he just had a touch more powerful. There's black and white steer, more moderate frame steer, a little quicker looking steer, big body, deep sided, just a little bold about his head and shoulder. I'd like to just freshen him up all the way through his front end. Steer that comes next, sound structured steer that's deep sided, just a little plainer in his overall look. The steer that comes next, I think he's the one that's a real flashy show steer looking one out of the class, but when you get him moving, his structure is really concerning. He's really straight off both ends. You can see him toeing up and that knee knocking forward. We just got to change his running gear for me. The yellow steer, I think if we put a pair of clippers on him and really get this one presented well, we might rediscuss this class, because there's some pieces about him I like. His foot, his bone work, his body shape. I think one that I think balances up extremely nice to me. He gets a little plainer about his head and neck and the base of his chest, but a really nice sound-footed, functional kind of cattle there around in this class. The red and white steer that rounds out the class, probably the soundest footing steer in the class. But when you get behind him, pretty flat in his muscle pattern. Wants to close up. I just wish he had just a touch more width. But nice set of steers, and all the way through, congratulations to those exhibitors.
Got a nice pair of Maine Anjou heifers back here.
Results from class 15. We're going to have first place goes to Kylie Stevenson of Portales, New Mexico. Second goes to Riley Smith of Whitman, Arizona. Third goes to Cash Ropke of Queen Creek, Arizona. Fourth goes to Ben Texiria of Terrebonne, Oregon. Fifth goes to Bailey Welch of Cottonwood, Arizona. Sixth goes to Priscilla Corona Melendez of Ashland, Oregon. Seventh goes to Ashlyn Richardson of Arlington, Arizona. Eighth goes to Victoria Gonzalez of Buckeye, Arizona. Ninth goes to Serlin Heshi of Queen Creek, Arizona.
Just another single entry here, but a good female. Striking, high quality heifer here from the side. Very high tying up front through her front end, and just sleek and attractive there in terms of her shoulder. Balances up really well down her top line.
Start to wrap up the steer show. A class maybe not as deep or as competitive, and maybe we could change a lot of things about all four of them, but the steer that's the most complete and the most true and genuine at the ground is the black steer. I think the young lady's calf just balance ups it really nice. He's sound structured, got a little bit of swelling down low, and I'd like to change that about him in terms of that hawk and pastern, but a steer I think is just built just a touch better when you study his top line and how comfortable he is in terms of his shoulder and knee. Black and white steer standing there, you like him. He's good bodied, he's deep sided. He's a calf though, when you get him in motion, just not as comfortable in terms of his mobility. I'd like him to balance up just a little better for his hip and hind leg. Same goes for the red steer. I think the red steer's better bodied than the steers ahead of him. I think he's better in terms of that rear flank, but a steer, when you study him on the move, he gets really straight off both ends of his skeleton. Would like to change his pastern set as well. The smoke steer is one, when he first came in, I said, that's a good feed one. He's good bodied, he's moderate frame. It's just when we get in motion, he's really closed up at the base of his skeleton. Those hocks just don't coordinate as well as we'd like. I'd just like to change his hip and hind leg structure to get him any higher today. But nice set of steers here to wrap up this prospect steer show off with. Congratulations to those exhibitors.
Good sing.
Coming in from Class 14, Kobe Kirby, Muleshoe, Texas. Kaylee Stevenson of Portales, New Mexico. Alyssa Welch, Cottonwood, Arizona. At the conclusion of this division drive, can we please have all of our Grand and Reserve Champion prospect steers from the respective divisions ringside? Grand and Reserve Champion division winners need to be ringside. Best of Arizona calves need to be ringside. Best of Arizona and the prospect steers need to be ringside.
Steers here to wrap up Division 3. I think it comes down to a couple out here that just stick out and have the wow factor, the extra look, the extra power, and still correct at the ground. With that said, I'll go grab you a top 3 in this particular division. So let's put our hands together for a nice Division 3 here in the steer show.
Congratulations, your champion Minanju heifer goes to Cash Miller. And your reserve Minanju open heifer goes to Emily Crum. Your champion heavyweight division in the prospect steer goes to Kobe Kirby, Muleshoe, Texas. Your reserve division champion goes to Kylie Stevenson of Portales, New Mexico. Third goes to Trace Johnson of Monte Vista, Colorado.
Third is Trace Johnson, 8348.
We are now going to be moving into our miniature Hereford Open Madeline Schickendoff from Perryton, Texas. The middleweight division, Denver McKay from Orlando, Oklahoma. And from the heavyweight division, Kobe Kirby from Muleshoe, Texas. All of Best of Arizona prospect steers need to be ringside.
This is the 8 and under prospect.
Here on the Prospect Steer, we wrap it up in this champion drive. I can't say it enough for the quality and the depth of cattle that we've had from the first division all the way to the third division. Excellent set of feeder steers. It's fun when they're this young and they're furry and they're stout and powerful and still good looking. And sometimes in my head I get myself in trouble. I'll be the first to admit, I guess my family's fed a lot of these things, and you want to predict and you want to see a future in them, but at the same time none of us are that smart. And so I have to keep in mind it's what they are today and how powerful they are today. But the ones that we're going to see come throughout this ring, these first, second, and third overalls, I think they're good cattle. It's going to be fun if I get to watch them here in the near future, how they mature and how they end up, because I think there's so much quality in each one of them. They just carry things a little different in terms of their type and kind. But thanks again. I was here yesterday doing the Junior Heifer Show, and I'm here tomorrow doing the Steer Show, so I don't want to get too long-winded, but thanks to the Arizona National and their crew, keep the cattle coming and keep things good. I'm glad there's a little breeze today. I'm not as hot and warm as we were yesterday, and it keeps these cattle just a touch better when there is a little breeze. But with that said, let's put our hand together for a great Prospect Steer Show, and we're going to figure out here a top 5.
Congratulations here, champion 8 and under miniature Hereford division. Goes to entry number 4443, Lola Harding of Gardendale. Steers, your grand champion 2003 Arizona National Prospect Steer Show goes to entry number 8932, Kobe Kirby of Muleshoe, Texas. And over in the Prospect Steer Show, we also joined into the ring, entry number 3500, Joshua Williams, Gilbert, Arizona. And over in the Prospect Steers, your reserve champion, Prospect Steer, goes to Denver McKay of Orlando, Oklahoma. Your third overall belongs to Cash Pratt from Pueblo, Colorado. Fourth belongs to Charlie Ramsey, Alamogordo, New Mexico. In fifth place, Kylie Stevenson, Portales, New Mexico.
be part of the Prospect Steer Show. Compliments to you guys. It's going to be fun to see how Arizona competes, because there's quality within these Prospect Steers throughout the earlier classes today. For me, we're going to pull 2 of them out of each class here. I think there's 3 classes, and then we'll bring each of those back and do an overall Arizona. But for me, we're going to bring this yellow one out. He was pretty competitive within his class earlier this morning. Good looking rascal that has some structure and body to him. He's going to win this class for me. And then it gets a little more challenging between finding a second and third. For, I think, to me, you can't look past the look and the design and the structural integrity. Young lady, you're going to be second right here. Young man, you got a good calf, good body. And you told me it was your first year out here. Stay with it, because I think your calf's got some longevity aspects to him in terms of feeding really well. Today, he just gives up the extra look. But nice set of steers here in the Arizona show to start it off with.
A nice pair here in this class, and good.
To get stopped. If you go through here, you can see a lot of them were at the top of their class, or the top 4. And I said this earlier at the first Arizona class today. Compliments to you guys. I think it's going to be a tough throughout your state. If you look at these kind of cattle, you're going to make your state very, very competitive. To me, there's one that's awfully good and got in a very, very tough class earlier. And I think such a tough class. I think that 2 that were ahead of them were in the top 5. So you can't look past the red steer out of here. here is going to win this particular division for me. I think he's awfully good. I think from there it gets a little more challenging when you try to find a reserve one out here, because there's some good ones. I think this is the most competitive division we've had in this Arizona part so far. I like the look, the design, and the structural integrity. Maybe not the stoutest one in here, but I just think his built is more correct. Young lady, I'm going to grab you here to be reserve in this particular division.
We are going to be entering the ring with all of our division. We have Julia Dyer from Arizona coming back, and Charlie Cake from the lightweight division. We have Faith Campa coming back, and Grace Grosetta.
This has been a very good miniature Hereford heifer.
Of Arizona series pulled around and stopped and striking a pose for you. Excellent group of steers. I would say as we got heavier in that heavyweight division, probably not the depth of quality that we'd like to see as other divisions, but darn sure some cattle that got some future and longevity. To me, structure in this particular division sticks out to me in terms of being fresh and youthful and still maintaining that show steer look. We're going to come up and grab the young lady here with the black steer. You're going to win division Division III out here for me. It gets a little more challenging because you got a big, stout, powerful steer over there that's a little staler in his overall look, and I'd like to change him at the ground in terms of his structure. And then you got a smoke steer that's really good looking, and he's got that neat look, and he's structurally sound. So for me, it gets extremely, extremely tough. I'm gonna hang my hat on the sound structure and say, this young man, you're gonna be reserved. I think you have the longevity advantage and being fresher and more youthful. Congratulations to this last division out here.
In the open cattle barn, we're going to be moving into the class number 32 Spring Bull Calves, calved January through April 2023. We're going to be bringing in entry number 8921, Hannah Hogan of Eastland, Texas. And entry number 8817, Mitch Batty of Bernal. Arizona category for the prospect calves. We're going to be bringing back Carly King and Richard Hanger. I have a quick announcement from the Arizona Nationals office that the fitting clinic is at 4 p.m. today in the open cattle ring, pending when the open show is finished. And just to let you know that the contest will follow the clinic. So the fitting clinic will follow, and contest will follow when the open cattle show is finished.
Got a nice pair of them here to start off our bull show, and a nice class winner here. One up front, the bull is just longer, more extended. He gives you a really good look here from the side. There's some more foot and bone and substance in him. Get on top of him, just more animal from a muscle and stoutness standpoint. Nice place to start here in this class. The bull here in second, calf nice. He's got some body shape to him. He's moderate in his size. I think he's sound enough in terms of his structure, just not the overall power and dimension and look here from the side as our class winner, but two high quality. Congratulations to those individuals.
Congratulations to Hannah Hogan of Eastland, Texas. And second goes to Mitch Baby of
Steer side, we're going to get you a champion reserve here in the Arizona part of things. Nice set of steers. I think it was very competitive, and I said this earlier, there were steers here within this particular division that you saw high up in the class, and one out here in particular was in one of the toughest classes that we sorted throughout the day. Young lady right here in front of me with the red steer, you got a darn good one. Congratulations to you.
Congratulations, your champion, Best of Arizona Prospect Steer goes to Grace Grosetta of Cottonwood, Arizona.
I think from reserve, it gets a little more challenging. As you watch this steer go, I think he is just so correct in terms of his build, his structural integrity, and still maintains a look. Some of you might say, is he powerful enough? I think he's borderline, but his build, his type and kind, his structure, I love him through his front 1/3 and that throat latch into the base of his chest. The calf behind him, I think you like from his midrib back, his boldness, his depth, his muscle. He gets a little plainer through that head and through that neck and jawline. So I think it's very close. For me, I just think the extra look, the extra wow factor goes to this young lady here in the middle. You're going to be reserved. Congratulations to you guys.
Congratulations to your reserve Best of Arizona Prospect Steer calf belongs to Faith Campa out of Golden Valley, Arizona.
Got a good bull here in this class.